Look, I opened this jar of rotten baby food, and well, a butterfly came out.
I'm sorry. Okay, that was a brain twister. Not what I expected to be asked. Um, okay, well,
Welcome to the Comedians and Elevators podcast. I've got my guest, Zonsiluo, and I won't pronounce the last name. I also have been told not to say Z, and we're going to get into it. So introduce yourselves, tell us a little bit about yourself, and we'll go from there.
okay, my name is Zonsiluo Gompah. Most people call me CeeLo, and you can certainly call me Z.
Ah,
And I'm a actress, writer, producer. I am based in Los Angeles, but also Buffalo, New York. So bi-coastal chick. I produce film and TV.
very cool. So Buffalo, is there a vibrant cinematic scene in Buffalo?
Actually, there's a lot that happens in Buffalo. They just built this huge studio and it's supposed to attract a bunch of people. It has really great tax incentives. So a lot of films actually shoot in Buffalo. We get a couple at least a year. And yeah, I mean, it's
Very cool.
there's some stuff going on for sure.
But what's all over the country now. So you ready to get into the podcast?
I am ready.
Listen, to my regular listeners, I know you don't like when at the beginning of these conversations I ask you to subscribe. None of us like it. I don't like saying it. I don't like it being in here. But it's frustrating. You know what else is frustrating? It's also frustrating when I look in the back end of the YouTube channel and I see that 56% of you that watch frequently haven't yet subscribed. And I know this because I see it in the comments section. You say things like, I didn't know I didn't subscribe. And that's actually what fuels the show. Basically, it's like you're making a donation to the show. So that's why I ask all the time, because it enables us to build and build and build, and we're going for the long term here. Hit the subscribe button, and we'll continue to build this show for you. That's my promise. Thank you to all you guys that do subscribe. It means the world to me. All right, so the whole point of the podcast is to compare and contrast the comic versus the comedian.
Mhm.
So I define the comic as any person telling funny jokes versus the comedian who's a funny person telling any jokes. Now, Z, would you
So,
agree that you start as a comic and evolve into a comedian?
uh, yeah, I mean, that sounds like about accurate. And to be honest, like the comedian and comic thing, you're the first person I've seen distinguish between them. I
Mhm.
use it interchangeably and I realize, oh, wait, maybe I'm not. But it sounds like the comic is someone who's still just starting out, and the comedian is somebody who has spent some time with their repertoire and developing it, and like they've got it solid.
Absolutely. I would agree. And there's also another component, right? The external versus the internal, right? So the comic, I would argue, is external, tells jokes about other people. Also, comic books, you have a very visual kind of cartoony component versus the comedian who's very internal, right? You can have someone wearing a suit telling jokes about themselves and they're a comedian. So, you ready for the
Yes.
first question?
Oh, oh, oh. Take a breath. Doing it. Yes.
So it's all about the role of persona in comedy. So, how
Mhm.
much of the comedian's voice is a character versus their real self?
I would say that depends on the person
Hmm.
because I can see someone who develops, I mean, as a performer, right? There's certain things that you realize you naturally lean into, and it may not be you at all. But
Right.
because you naturally lean into it, you can much more not only just develop, but other people accept what you're offering. And so I can
Okay.
see that that persona could be a put on completely,
Hmm.
or it could be something that just really is their shtick. It's just their thing.
Kind of like a comic. So, does authenticity matter or is illusion part of the magic?
I think it's both. I think it's both.
Okay.
I mean, authenticity matters in that I think in any kind of art, unless you believe it, it's really hard to convey it. Do you know? So, authenticity, if nothing else, is in your ability to just dive in. I've noticed the key to performance is being gung ho. Just commit.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so yeah, so I mean, on the one hand, you have that where, like there has to be this authenticity in terms of like you believe it in a certain way, and if you don't believe it, you're going to go with it really strongly. Which is a level of authenticity. And then the other part, yes, there is illusion because people are multi-layered anyway, and
Mm-hmm.
so this is what they're presenting. And you can again fully commit to the illusion of that could be what you put on, like whether internally or actually externally as well.
So I guess what I'm catching is there is no such thing as wishy-washy illusion. Would you agree?
I would agree 100%. Yeah.
All right. All right.
Mhm.
Next question. Punching up versus punching down. So, where do comics versus comedians stand on this? Now, let me put it into some historical context. Did a jealous medieval prince become the first comedian by killing the court jester?
I'm sorry. Okay, that was a brain twister. Not what I expected to be asked. Um, okay, well, I mean, again, I think it depends on the person. Like there's there's an intellectual aspect to both parts, right? If you
Hmm.
can punch down, like punching down to me is taking a piece of work and making it something that other people can understand because something can be too high level for
Hmm.
people. So if you're able to break it down, you might actually be able to get a lot further. And there's an intellect to that. And that, if someone's too intelligent, actually, they in most cases will fail that part to be able to break it down. Punching up, um, I mean, there's another art to that. I don't know what it is, but I actually think that it's harder to punch down and punch down in a way that is uh, uh, successful.
I mean, it's usually the usual connotation is with failure, right? Punching down is
Mhm.
considered not. There's no success in that story. Right? There's very few that are labeled as punching down, and then you look
And
up to
doing it
them
well. Yeah.
and doing it well,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So
Because mhm.
I really don't know what much to say other than what I already did with this, putting it in historical context of a situation you've never heard of before.
Yeah, yes.
So would you
Yeah.
agree
I mean,
that
I think I need to understand that whole concept a little bit more, but
ah,
the way I see it is almost like someone has this kind of material and they're presenting it to an audience that, like is beneath them per
mhm,
se.
right?
I don't know if that would be correct. And then, or they have this material and they're trying to present it to an audience as above them. But yeah.
So I would definitely say that if you're using words like present, it's not comedy, right? Especially in a,
Yeah.
in a, in a show because it's supposed to be a dialogue. It's not a
Hmm.
monologue, even though it
Hmm.
presents as a monologue. In fact, it is a dialogue. So, but
Yes.
the audience typically isn't saying anything, just laughing, hopefully. So is the audience
Engagement. Yes.
right? So is the audience agreement with the comedian a form of permission or alignment?
Hmm. These questions, they're both tricky because I think it inspires a lot of thought.
Right.
Um, because I feel like the is it the long game? The long game is I don't know which one would be the long game, but
When you say long game, are you talking about like the set itself? Like if you're doing stand
I'm
up, like
saying it's the what your end game is, So it's like you're trying to achieve one thing
mhm.
because really you're trying to get here instead. Um,
But we're talking
yeah.
about inside of a joke, even if it may be a multi-layered joke.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm saying like when you are there are several ways to build fans, right?
Mhm.
So in a sense, like someone can agree with you, but agreement and alignment are very different things. I
Right.
can agree with you about, oh, these people, blah, 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 blah. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
To me, aligning is either being there for your cause, you know what I mean? Whatever it is you're trying to accomplish, right? Being a part of it, or it's actually almost like relating.
Right.
And so, depends. Depends on the person.
Yeah, yeah. Just it's make so we're creating a world here where the what you say is actually the reality, right? And it doesn't exist
Yes.
until you say it. Okay,
Hmm.
crowd work versus crafted work. So, if comics riff, such as crowd work, like
Hmm.
influencers on TikTok, for example, and
Hmm.
comedians perform like doing crafted work, where is the sweet spot?
Well, I feel like sometimes people lean one way more than the other, you know, and that might be part of their journey, meaning that as a younger person, you know, and I think in some ways you've almost said that a comedian is almost the more mature version of the comic, right?
Mm,
Or I
I would
think,
argue.
yeah,
I would say
okay.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, so I can see how both matter. So, on the one hand, for the comic, crowd work can be what really builds fans, you know, and
Okay.
stuff because they're engaging with you, which is part of the alignment process, right? So there's this
Right.
engagement. Um, but at the same time, I feel like a comedian shouldn't lose the ability to do crowd work. You know, I mean, you performers have to be both stylized and specific in what they're choosing, right?
Hmm.
Um, same time, you know, your instrument, as if I could sound like an actor, your instrument also has to be loose. You know, it has to be able to adapt in different scenarios. And so I think the sweet spot is to be able to, like, you know, to be a comedian who has developed, you know, their shtick. I love those words, words like that.
Yeah.
You've developed your shtick. You know what works for you. You
Hmm.
know what the crowd is eating up. Okay. And you can still plunk that and use it in a scenario that may not, you know, that isn't completely part of the craft. It's just part of the craft is actually allowing space for it to move and shift.
So I don't know if it's the delay, but did you say plunk?
Plunk. Yeah, I think I said plunk yourself, right? I think I
Yes.
did.
Just checking. You want to make
Beady,
sure
beady,
that
beady,
that was
beady.
actually what you said, not the delay with the
Plunk.
Zoom.
Yes.
Plunk. Yeah, plunk.
Yes.
Yeah, get your
Plunk
shtick and you got to
yourself into a
into
world
your
of
shtick.
something. Yeah. I mean, plunking is
Yeah.
really like it's like I mean, it's like almost like a leaping up, you know, like you stick to it.
Right. You plunk your shtick.
Exactly.
No.
Yeah.
So what happens when a comic leans too much into crowd work or when a comedian gets heckled?
What happens when that happens? I'm sorry, what
Yes.
happens when a
What
comic
happens when
leans
that
too much?
happens?
Well,
Exactly.
yeah. I mean, I can see how leaning too much would be that you lose what your persona is.
Okay.
You know, because you can overly engage. And if you overly engage in a way, you can start to take on what everyone else is saying
Hmm.
and start to lose yourself in what you've created in
So
it.
are you saying you literally forget your identity?
I mean, certainly, I mean, if we talk about a comedian has a persona. Yeah,
Right.
I mean, I can see because their persona is one part of them, is what they are. Um, I'm going to say the word again, presenting.
Okay. Well, okay. So would that
Yeah.
if they're presenting, is that actually a lack of confidence?
No, no, I don't
Okay.
think presenting is because the idea, you know, to me, the idea of presenting is what you have face forward. It's
Okay.
what you have in front. It's not necessarily all the layers that are underneath. Do you know?
Okay.
And it's
So
kind of like if you, mhm, yeah,
I'm just trying to put in. So I'm thinking two things at the same time. I'm thinking in person, like in a comedy club, and I'm also thinking on
yes.
the screen. So are you perhaps referring to more on the screen when you say presenting because it's a kind of an end result versus an in-person scenario?
I'm more saying that a persona is, you know, like I feel like a persona is something that has to be in agreement. The parts of it has to be in agreement with each other.
Mm.
And so if my persona is the warm motherly type, like I'm not going to throw in there that part that's that kind of confuses the audience. And so that's why I use the word presenting, because I'm more than warm or motherly, like, but there's
I
some
see.
parts that don't align with
So
what I,
perhaps
yeah.
the word presenting is a reduced version or a synthesized version of what your intention is.
um I think it's the intention.
Okay.
Okay.
Hmm.
So to me, I mean, it's like if you're talking to different people, some people, like, I mean, and that's the thing, like a persona, some people's persona is that it doesn't matter who they're talking to, is exactly the same, is
Right.
exactly, right?
Right.
And then there's someone else who um they give different parts of themselves depending on who they're talking to. They are responding to the audience. And you can obviously
Hmm.
see that the person who's one thing is very loud and clear. Do you know? I mean, like what you're gonna get from the person who, okay, it's like Mr. Bean. Doesn't matter who Mr. Bean engages with, you know what you're gonna get, right? Um, um,
So I'm
yeah.
going to throw
So
this one out here for
yeah.
I'm going to present. I'm going to speak directly to computer nerds. I'm going to say what I understand that you're describing is something like a Docker image, right? It's actually just a mirror of something. It's an artifact in space presenting. And so I
Yes.
know that may not make sense, or maybe I caught something. Does that sound like something that makes sense to
That
you?
sounds correct. That sounds like correct. Because I feel like a persona is not the whole you, is a part of you
Okay.
or part of what you're giving to people. Okay. So, I mean, it could be authentic, it might not be authentic. Okay. But it's the thing that you feel that you're going to lead with. Okay. But it's not the whole person.
All right. I think we're in agreement with this. All right. Next question. Advertising and self promotion. Who advertises themselves more? The comic, the comedian, or the magician? You know that place where you're not conscious and you're not sleeping either? That's your power bill to the electric company. Right here. I want us to be here with free energy, where the Wardenclyffe Tower meets the Eiffel Tower. But that's not where we are. We are here, where you've got the utility and you've got residential solar. Between these two, we know which one saves you money. This is where we can go in the meantime. But this is where I want us to be now, and this can be done now. So let me deputize you to represent DOSE, Department of Solar Efficiency, and let's get on the podcast and get the message out today. See you soon.
Oh my gosh. Hmm. I'm gonna go with the comedian. And the reason is that the advertisement does not differ.
Okay.
Like I was saying, like if it's Mr. Bean, you know exactly who he is,
Uh,
and in ad work you have to be clear. So the comedian is very clear, and every moment he's out there, is another. It's
yes.
almost like it's like the repetition, right? It's like, okay, reminding them.
Mhm.
They say before someone buys, you have to sell to them like 7 to 12 times. So the comedian just keeps on selling. You're not going like, oh, is there another part? No, no, this is the part. This is it. This is it. So I would go with that. I feel like the magician is like, he's pulling out all the stops. Like it's
But they're
changeable.
different
He has
stops.
like, I'm sorry.
But they're different stops. He's doing
They're
different
different
things. They're
stops, right? He has 100 things in his bag.
right.
Which one is he gonna pull out? He doesn't even know yet. Reaches in.
Uh,
Oh, look. Okay, we're gonna go with this one.
now, would you say that's similar to the comic as well?
I think it's somewhat similar to the comic, but I think that the comic has less bag of tricks,
Okay.
you
All
know?
right.
And if
All
nothing
right.
else, it's the medium. Is the medium, right? Like the comic often is out there on a stage, So there's several things you can do with that stage. but you can't suddenly like, I mean, you don't go out there with a bag for most
I've
people.
seen it. I've seen
I'm
it.
sure. I'm
So,
sure.
so is self-promotion seen as selling out, or is it necessary for survival?
I think it's necessary.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, it's necessary to all parts of life, you know, like if I'm going to if I'm a single person trying to date, do you know, like self-promotion is important. And it may not be that I'm always out there going like, hey, look at me, I'm such and such and such. You
Right.
know, self-promotion can be what I'm doing in the moment that I observe. Do you know? It's
Hmm.
what someone else takes away and says, hey, that girl, blah, 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 right? But it's also what you might be seeing and you're all the way over there. I've never even met you.
I'm with you on that. I'm with you on that. Okay, so censorship and offense. Does a
Hmm.
comic avoid offense while a comedian courts it to prove a point, like a magician?
Um, huh. I mean, I would say that I think it depends on what the comedian's act is, but I can see how a comedian would court it more because there's a lot less a variety to what he's doing, right? It's like this is the persona, this is what it looks like, this is how it engages, right?
Okay. Well,
The yeah, and so that could be offensive to different groups, is what I'm saying.
okay. So then
Yeah,
who would survive better in the cancel culture environment? The comic, comedian, or magician?
the magician,
Yeah.
too many bags of tricks.
They can always, yeah. The illusion is all about that. All right. So timing
Yeah.
and delivery. Is it a science or an art? So do comics rely more on structure and comedians more on rhythm and emotion?
Huh. Well, I mean, here's the thing. I think that anything that's successful takes the two and combines it, you know, art and timing.
Hmm.
Um, but I don't see how anything is successful without structure and without rhythm. You know, I would actually say that a comic uses a lot of rhythm because part of the rhythm part of it is engaging with the audience and seeing what's going on. You know, if they're not feeling this part, then you switch, right?
Hmm.
Or you go deeper. You know, you adapt it. So I don't see how either exists without rhythm and structure.
All right. And that's exactly what I would agree. All right. So laughter versus applause. Are comics chasing laughs and comedians chasing applause breaks that validate the message?
You know, I feel like if is comedy, your thing is about laughs. Okay. Applause, applause is just it's like the um is the gift, right? It's the thing that you're not necessarily gonna get. Okay. But the laughs is something that tells you a lot already. And so I think that's the main thing. The other is
Hmm.
just, you know, like it's icing on the cake, it's cherry on top.
Okay. All right. I would go with that one. So comedy as commentary. So when does a comedian cross into being a philosopher or a preacher?
I think when someone understands life, you know, life for people, you know, those can be two different things almost. If
Uh-huh.
you have an understanding of something and you are allowing there to be some part of that alive in your act, you know, that's where it becomes commentary. And there's definitely different levels of this. You know, some people will flat out just say it, okay? And I mean that's where sometimes applause comes in. But then there's some people who, if you dig deeper, you'll see the commentary is not right in your face. And I mean, obviously, I think that is a lot harder. It's a lot harder, and it's also something that a lot of people might miss. In fact, that's where someone might think that there's alignment happening with the comedian when really they're exactly the thing he's speaking against, or like making fun of.
So is it good or is it diluting the humor?
I think it's good. I don't think it's for everybody,
Hmm.
okay? But I love smart humor. Okay. I love
Mm,
something in which it's like it, like you hear it today and you hear it like 20 years later, you're gonna have either a different reaction or you're gonna understand it better,
right.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So comedy and vulnerability. So I would argue comics hide behind their jokes and comedians expose themselves. If you agree, which one is braver? What a stupid question.
I mean, obviously exposing yourself is always usually is brave. I mean, for some people, exposing themselves is to elicit certain reactions and they may not be brave
Mhm.
because they're just looking for feel good or a woe is me or something. I got really serious, didn't I,
Yeah.
with that? Um,
That's not the question I expect to get serious on, but let's hear it.
well, vulnerability. I mean, vulnerability is such a, I think it's so important. I mean, vulnerability is actually what makes an artist better.
No,
Like, I
100,
mean,
100%. I mean, even the
yeah,
spelling of the word, right? The L you don't even pronounce. If you try and pronounce the L in vulnerability, you can't.
yeah.
Is it
Mhm.
vulnerable? How do you
I
vulnerability?
feel
Is
like
it?
I tried to say that vulnerable. Well, yeah, now
Nobody
I'm
does.
like vulnerable.
Nobody does that.
Um, yeah,
Nobody does that. It's
yeah,
vulnerability. The L is silent. I don't
vulnerability.
know where.
Yeah.
So we've got a
Hmm.
tradition on the Comedians and Elevators podcast where the
Okay.
previous guest has a question for the next guest. So the previous guest was Jean-Paul Motherway, and his question is to you, but he didn't
Uh-huh.
know yet that the question would be going to you. So don't take it personally. But the question is, where do you get your dry cleaning from?
And this is a personal question.
It's not. He doesn't know who's next. So, but that's the question he's asking you is
I
where do
have
you get?
never in my life dry cleaned one thing.
Okay, there it is. That's the
Yeah.
So the answer is that's the answer. I mean, where else can you go
Yeah.
with that?
I get my dry cleaning from my laundry. I do it in cold. If this is dry cleaning, I do it in cold, and I generally do not put it in the dryer. But my sister's like, everything can go in the dryer now, so she needs to teach me that part.
All right. All right, last question. Legacy. Who gets
Mhm.
remembered? Will the comics tight five survive time, or will the comedian's cultural point of view be more timeless?
I feel like the comedian, of course, because that is the work you put into a persona is not throwaway. It's something that it's very thought through.
Mhm.
It's responding actually, it is actually a response to the audience, and the way it gets developed to be what it is. Um, and it definitely can say and do a lot more than the rest does, maybe. I don't know. I think
Yeah,
so. But
yeah, you
again,
got it.
I can see how you can use both. I mean, you're going to look back. Uh, I mean, I guess I'm thinking about George Carlin, for instance, right?
Hmm.
I almost, whatever, like he was a comedian for sure. But it's like, I don't think of him the same way I look at, like these character types because it just feels so authentic. And we always look at George Carlin stuff. Everyone remembers it goes like, remember when George Carlin said this? Look at it today. Look at it. Whatever. Yeah. So
George Carlin is so iconic and he has such a great joke structure where as I argue, he gives you the solution first and then he
Hmm.
tells you the problem. And I think that structure is so pervasive through his whole style that there are AI versions of George Carlin that are just
Hmm.
as funny as him. And you wouldn't know it's not him because, well, he's dead. So, all right, Z.
If
So
it says his show at blah 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 in 2025.
yeah, I've already seen it online and it is quintessential George Carlin AI, even though he is dead.
Oh.
So his
I mean,
style
AI
lives.
is stealing all our spirits and our souls. Let's be honest.
Well, so I would, not to harp on it, but I think in this case, George Carlin is so iconic in his style of comedy that I think he would appreciate that AI can do this. And I don't think he would be upset. That's my take. So I think he would look down and say, you know what? Who started that. So
Right, right,
I'm going
right.
to give it to John. Well, Z, where can everybody find you online?
Gosh. Well, let's see here. I am on Instagram, and I do communicate with people. If you email me, I tend to respond. Some Sometimes I miss it, especially if it's buried deep in the regions. I may not see that little thing, but I'm
I
at
haven't seen that
Zonsiluo.
tab, the regions tab on
Right,
the
right. It's
email.
like, oh my gosh, 2 weeks later. But it's Zonsiluo is how you find me. It's Z as in zebra, O, N as in night, S as in Sam, ILUO, as you can see it written right underneath my name. I also am on LinkedIn, and a lot of people communicate with me on LinkedIn. But yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Z, thank you so much for being my guest. And for everybody, please like and subscribe, and we will see you in the next one.